suggest you do.
I saved her.
It's been just over 10 years since we first laid eyes and shed a tear for Joel, Sarah and Ellie's story in The Last of Us. Since then, we've had remasters, remakes, a hit HBO show, and now we've come full circle with a remaster of Part 2 on PlayStation 5. No, this is not the updated for PS5 patch that released a few years ago. Instead, this is a full remaster that has new modes, new behind the scenes levels, and the latest version of the Naughty Dog engine. Let's go rogue one more time in the name of vengeance. The original Last of Us was a game that may have shipped on the PlayStation 3, but in reality was, at times, constrained by it. The sequel on the PS4 was as much a leap forward as an unshackling in rendering, animation and technology that saw the dogs through 3 releases on the PS4 and the PS4 Pro hardware. This remaster stands on the shoulder of that engine and the updates within the Last of Us remake released 2 years ago now on PS5. Compared to even the PS4 Pro version though, running on PS5, the gap is not as significant, though that's not to say we do not see some improvements. Some come from the new and likely very popular roguelike mode in No Return, finally giving Joel a chance to avenge himself, along with a selection of the full game's characters. This plays out like a branching path horde mode with various unlocks, boosts and challenges, topped off with a boss battle end. More in line with the performance review remit are the bonus work in progress levels that include audio commentary from both the cast and director Neil Druckmann. Much like bonus features on a Blu-ray release, these offer a great insight into how the game and levels all come together, and paired with the trailer for the soon-to-be released Grounded 2 dev doc, it packs in quite a nice selection of bonus features and modes. It makes the $10 or so upgrade price good value if you have the PS4 version already, and that includes both disc and digital versions. Modes wise, we get the same options as we saw with The Last of Us Part 1 remaster. 2 options by default, aside a new FOV slider which is a nice touch and can improve some of the vistas in the game. In addition, depending on your TV, a further 2 options to improve that even further. I applaud any team that, like Naughty Dog, state what the mode offers to the player. The fidelity mode is fixed from all my counts at 3840 by 2160 with a 30 FPS refresh rate. The aptly named performance mode does just that, by doubling the performance to 60 FPS at the cost of resolution counts. The Last of Us 2 now targets the previous PS4 Pro and PS5 free update patch of 2560 by 1440, which is then upscaled to 4K via the console itself, or 1440p if you set that in the settings. If you set that on the console itself, the difference between the 2 modes all comes down to resolution, specifically fine and coarse elements such as hair, textures, snow particles, shadows, and any high frequency sections can look sharper, clearer and more detailed in that fidelity mode. I also noted minor reductions to shadows and ambient occlusion in the proxy capture reflections when in performance mode, but like filtering, these are almost certainly resolution related. All modes do benefit from the PlayStation 5 I/O now, with a big increase in loading times, which could be around 40 plus seconds even on the PS5 updated code. We can now see around 8 to 15 seconds, which benefits the main game, and more so that no return mode, which can still have a good deal of time loading and waiting. The DualSense use has also been significantly improved here, with feedback, haptics all added and a menu to tweak them further. These are all subtle, but they add up to a collection of enhancements that improve the game overall. Compared to the previous PS4 Pro code, be it on the Pro or PS5, we see minor increases from my tests. Texture quality is close to identical at 1440p, but the 4K mode does provide much sharper material details, so textures may have been reauthored. Aside from this though, character models, lighting precision, shadows and effects are all a match when compared side by side. Some minor updates come in transparencies with bottles, glasses and even large panes of glass now being more translucent and accurate, which is likely an update within the engine itself. Level of detail is the only minor boost you notice most in that 4K fidelity mode, but the 1440p performance mode also has the same increase. Now normally these are linked to resolution, as textures and LOD chains are often linked to pixel outputs to save on wasting bandwidth and performance for low to minimal visual return. Now these are similar to what we saw in the Uncharted collection on the PS5 launch and show that the engine upgrades have been minimal since that PS4 generation. This boils down to slightly more grass, trees and less LOD swaps as you move through the levels.
What the hell are you doing here?
I think I'd let you do this on your own.
As per our review of the patched PS5 update in 2021, that was a fully locked, by and large, 60 and 30 FPS unsurprisingly. Bar a few hiccups on cutscene changes or single drops in streaming, this version is locked to that same target. Fully tested in the most stressful sections, as your game saves can be easily imported into this new release, exactly as we saw with Ghost of Tsushima. Another welcome feature means you can use your completed game save to go straight into Game Plus and have that war all over again. At this point, the increases are lacking to say the least. However, for those of you with a 120Hz capable screen and or a VRR capable one, you can enable an unlocked high frame rate mode which works across both fidelity and performance modes. For fidelity, the unlock mode runs at 120Hz and means the game can now refresh every third frame, halving the frame cadence between 30 and 60. So we benefit from a smoother and faster refresh that feels and looks closer to the 60 FPS mode but retains the same sharp 4K output. This mode does a better job of maintaining 40 FPS than the review code of The Last of Us Remastered. That has since been patched and I assume those improvements are implemented here. From the fight with the scars in the woods or dodging clickers in the petrol station, aside a few skips into the 33 millisecond range, we see a solid and smooth readout from a selection of tests. In comparison to the base and locked 60 FPS performance mode, the gap is present but it's now much smaller. We also see a closer input latency now with a median of 132 milliseconds versus 119 in the performance mode. And both these modes felt responsive and much better than the 30 FPS output. With a game that relies on fast aiming, precision and dodging, this is both obvious and welcome. Now the final selectable is using VRR, and this only works in performance mode if you have a VRR screen. Like fidelity mode, it unlocks that 40 or 60 FPS cap. Now the game can run up to 8 milliseconds per frame, which means in theory we could hit 120 FPS. It could be a perfect mode to test out a potential PS5 Pro in the future, but in the here and now we get a boost in both modes. Performance fares better with it now able to run around the 80s and higher often in quieter sections, but in the heavier battle moments we do see it hovering around the high 60s and 70s. This again aids fluidity with our input medium now improving closer to 100 milliseconds, and although the gaps now are much smaller and harder to notice, they are no less welcome. Fidelity Unlocked sees far more frugal returns, now hovering in that no man's land of around 45 FPS. The increase and fluidity can feel better at times, but due to the fact it now no longer holds an even cadence of new frames, the presentation is not quite as consistent and remains a nice option for now and possibly in the future, but not a mode I would recommend. In like-for-like runs, we can see the fidelity mode averages 45.1 FPS and the performance mode averages 86.7, highlighting the headroom remaining for those respective modes on the PlayStation 5.
Go! Go!
The price of entry on this remaster is a welcome and correct choice from Sony, and from a technical perspective, some of the benefits here in the no return mode were likely developed alongside the now cancelled Factions multiplayer release, along with that FOV slider. And from that score, this feels like DLC to the base game. The leap made from remastering The Last of Us with The Last of Us 2's engine was both stark and transformative. With the game that the engine was largely built around, the increases are minimal. From a performance perspective, only those with a 100 or VRR screen will benefit here, with the free PS5 patch already offering the same 1440p 60 FPS mode. From the DualSense integration, improved input latency and the big increase in loading are all welcome, with the previous 40+ second loading times now boosted approximately 5 times to around 10 seconds, show that the PS5 SSD and I/O are at least being tapped, along with compression that allows more content for slightly less space than the previous release. The extra modes and challenge are the new best additions, and it is enjoyable, but it would have been much better and had a longer life with an online or at least split screen co-op option. That and the new bonus content and levels are the main draw though, and if you have never played this game, then this new PS5 remaster is certainly the most complete and best way to play. The foundations laid here will surely set the path to the eventual PC release, which may see some further increases to shadows and possibly more. I had hoped for more improvements over the loading, the minor resolution, level of detail and animation sampling rates, and on that score this update is a minor improvement at best, leaving this remaster as more a director's cut than anything else. If you like what we do here on IGN and IGN Performance Reviews, then keep it IGN, and we'll catch you on the next one.